Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to discuss something called universal basic income with the specialization in minimum basic income. So if you're like me, you've heard socialists online at rallies promising everyone a universal basic income. People like Bernie Sanders especially, who has definitely lived off the dole of the people his entire life. And it always seems to be inside these pushes for socialism, which can have various forms over it. Communism, for one. And when you hear about, this idea, you go, what is that? What is universal basic income? And they'll say, well, every single month, every confirmed citizen of a particular country gets X amount of dollars a month, regardless if they do anything. And for those of us who work our asses off for our money, it seems very counterintuitive. But one of my good friends, who I'm in a little project with, he's extremely well informed in so many aspects of society and how things are formed. He was preaching this on a phone call to me, on a conference call before we're starting a bigger conference call. And I was surprised to hear it come out of his mouth. I was like, what do you mean? I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, been earning money since I was a little kid. And so I'm like, what do you mean? You're going to take away this motivation to work? Mother of invention. That's what creates all goodness in life. And he said, you know what? He goes, I thought the same thing. When I first heard this, I was like, what person in their right mind would ever go for this? And then he started getting into it. And he definitely prefaced what he was saying, which I'm going to preface as well. This doesn't work yet. It doesn't work yet. There's no one who has solved, no country that has solved for all the problems that this system creates immediately. So we don't have this figured out just yet. But I will tell you that having made the Star Trek episode in Gene Roddenberry's world, which is our ultimate first goal of, changing what we have now, it seems like it's part of the game. It's just we have a problem. We have a bunch of corrupt people to gain power in the world. I'm not talking about rich people. I'm talking about corrupt people. Some of them make themselves rich through corruption. There's a lot of good, extremely wealthy people in this world. I don't know if it's a majority or not, so don't think I'm saying what I'm not saying. But here's the very first argument for this, which hit me pretty good. I wouldn't say a ton of bricks, but at least half a ton of bricks. Which is that it takes away the stigma of being on welfare. These social programs that help you when you're down and out really leave you with a stigma. It leaves you with a stigma to the outside world, and it leaves you with a stigma probably more impactful to yourself. If somebody said, okay, let's take yourself for 1 second, because you will empathetically get this, I think, very quickly. And again, there's different models to this, and we'll explain this in a second, but you have this overall theory of universal basic income, and then you have something called guaranteed minimum income, GMI, and then you have minimum basic income, MBI. We're going to be focusing on the one that takes care of social programs such as welfare and unemployment. Now, what if every single month you made $1,000, and again, that's jack shit in this world today, but $1,000 sort of keeps you out of the ditch, right? $1,000 might get you a month at a hotel or a motel. Again, keep you out of the rain, keep you out of the cold, keep you out of the heat, get you a little bit of food. You're not going to be eating great, but you won't starve to death. It's $12,000 a year. Again, that's not enough to stay in California very easily. But now, everybody gets this stuff. Everyone gets it. So now, you don't get food stamps anymore. You don't get welfare anymore. You never need to apply for unemployment. I mean, you may need more money, but you're going to have enough money to survive. You may not be able to keep your house. You may not be able to keep your big car. Again, there's mother of invention that's still available. Where you could live in this country for $1,000 a month, there's lots of places in the Midwest you could do it. I don't know if there'd be a differential for Southern California. Would almost seem like, you start ganking the system, people start claiming addresses that they don't live in to get the higher wages. So it's never been given a variable amount of money. So now when you think about where you are in life, you will always have this money. If you go and earn more money, then it's just more money. It's more slush fund that you can put into other things. Go back and get some school. Buy some things that you want. Save it. It's non-taxable. That's the other big one. But it gets rid of this thing where someone could ask you or somehow put it against you that you've been on welfare in your lifetime or you're currently on it. You wouldn't have to necessarily get any unemployment. Usually all these individual programs, all these assistance programs, and I don't know a bunch of them because I've never been on any of them besides unemployment at times, it all goes away. And the other thing that happens, which is very, very interesting, and I've definitely known about this one, is that I know that there are social programs out there where you'll get a little bit of assistance from the state, from the government or whatever, but if you earn 1 penny during the time that you're getting this assistance, they removed all the income. So say you're making $1,000 a month off of some welfare program of some sort, and you go out and earn $10, and they find out that you earn $10, they pull the whole grand. So now you're down $990 a month because you tried to go out and get a job and better your life. You weren't allowed to add it to the welfare. Universal income models let you keep that income regardless of what you earn. You simply earn it on top of that money. Now, there have been countless studies, where they try to go at universal income, both the minimum and the guaranteed models, and try to figure out what would happen if we turn these things on in modern Western societies. Now, you can just ask the French how much they like it. The yellow vest protesters that go out every weekend and tear up Paris. They're not real happy with it. All right? Brazil, the country that is like in a bloodbath 24/7 as of 2019. They have it too. Not working out. Double not working out. Canada's played with it a little bit. Hasn't turned it on. I think I have read in the last year that a lot of regions that have turned it on have found it really disrupted society. Some of the stuff that you will see, the sort of universal income explained really quickly or what have you, when it comes right down to some of the more susceptible areas of abuse, they start doing, I don't even want to say double speak, but they kind of double speak and triple speak. I mean, they just go into nonsensical statements of which have circular logic problems, and they just go on to the next thing. It's really funny. I just saw a really funny animated one today. Now, one of the big things is that if you gave someone this kind of money, then would they sit at home and do nothing? Well, universal income is never supposed to be so high that is very easy to do. But I will tell you, regardless if you've ever done it, every human being on earth needs a sabbatical at some point in their lifetime. I've had them forced on me through recessions, right? When I lost my game company, just to my clients disappearing. I mean, some of my clients were other game companies, right? They were using me to create the type of games that they didn't create. As I've said several times, I got phone calls from best friends of mine from the game industry with 20-year pedigrees shutting down their companies. I mean, it's just, and they weren't failing. That was the crazy thing. It was just, money was just evaporating, just like the 29 crash. In fact, one of my friend's companies, his company was called Airplay. They created an ingenious game where you could play along any type of sporting game on your phone live, making predictions about what was going to happen. And it was brilliant. It was successful. It was growing. It was blowing up. And their investors just got clobbered by this fake subprime loan scandal thing and shut the doors. I got a call I think it was probably December 2009, and he said, "We're shutting our doors. They said, have we paid you up on everything?" I said, "Yep. Sorry, buddy. If I had known, I would have lowered my rates a little bit." And they go, "Look, nothing would have helped. We don't have payroll. We don't have rent." But now imagine that situation with universal income. I think they had about 50 employees. Now, if everyone's pulling down $50,000 a month, combined, then maybe when a company dips really hard, they could all go back to their homes. You lose the office. Everyone kind of agrees the benefits just vanished or whatever. But they could hold the company together until the economy rebound and their clients rebound. Some of you sitting in your living room have some great ideas. Well, maybe this could just fuel you. You literally strategically go, I'm going to move into a hotel. I'm going to have my laptop and, a camera, and I'm going to do whatever I do to make money. It might open up some opportunities. But one of the biggest concerns was that, there's a stereotype that all homeless people use the money to go buy alcohol, drugs, tobacco, and that's all they do. Now, we know it does occur in certain circumstances, mostly due to depression is why these things occur. But it is actually a very low percent of people that do it. So what this would do is keep people from starving to death. And if you see a homeless person talking to themselves, I guarantee you it's malnutrition. It is not them necessarily being crazy. Now, I am sure that someone's been mentally ill and that caused them to be homeless, but I don't think that's the majority of people at all. But the sabbatical is huge, because what happens with a sabbatical, and I mean that you basically lose your job and you spend like a minimum of 6 months just figuring out who you are in the middle of your life. It's not necessarily a midlife crisis whatsoever. It's quite the opposite. It's a midlife identity clarification moment. It's not even an identity crisis. I mean, you might find out you've been pretending to be someone you're not, but that's every time you figure out something like that. The beautiful thing is that you're becoming more happy with yourself every second. It's interesting. I don't want you guys to lose any of your possessions and your comforts in life, but if you do get pushed into an unemployment situation, make sure you take the time to figure out who you are and what you want, what your goals are, whether or not you need more education to get those goals. Watch all my episodes on how to get that kind of stuff going, right? Now, the other thing about a lot of these welfare programs is they can be ganked by people who aren't citizens. Well, every universal income model is based on proving you're a citizen. Wow. For those of you who believe in border control and not giving away all of our hard-earned money through, all these assistant things, might be a really good first step. Now, some of the other things that they've done statistics on is they look at the average companies in America, and they've done incredible studies from groups that go in, like the Bobs from Office Space, and they found that only 33% of employees are actually productive at work. 18% hate their jobs, and the rest of them are just simply physically present at work but don't do anything. So the 33% keeps everyone employed. So now imagine those people that hate their jobs, the 18% or so, have $1,000 a month. Well, maybe they could pull back. Well, one, maybe they wouldn't be so miserable because they have a little bit of ancillary income, but they might pull back and go get the education that they need with the extra money. or pull out and look for a better job that's more suited to what they really want to do, and thus be happy and be a part of the 33%, which if you shrink to 18, maybe the productive part of society would grow. Now, again, if this was to be deployed in any country where you never had this option before, the sort of let's all take a break thing might occur. It might be this weird bell curve in the chronology of this deployment, such that everybody goes, geez, if you live in the Midwest, Tennessee, Kentucky, Kansas, somewhere in there where you can live off $1,000 a month because your rent's only $400, and this is all non-taxed, so you get the whole $1,000. And somehow you just know how to cook and scrimp, and you got a garden, and you go fish for your food or whatever, hunt, then maybe you can live off $1,000. You just take a year off, maybe 2 years off, just to sort yourself out. But eventually, everybody usually gets to a point where they need to be productive in society. And they'll end up, sometimes people go off and create products that they just did because they like it. They're like, I'm never going to work in the coal mine anymore. I'm just going to go home and be a carpenter. And then all of a sudden, people want to buy their tables and chairs, and they're like, oh my God, I'm making so much money off my hobby, which is now my career. And I have universal income in case I get sick or whatever. Now, I secretly think that universal income, since we do have so much corruption in the world, and it seems to be being pushed by the absolute bona fide corrupt politicians in this world, like unanimously being pushed by horrible people, that this isn't in the 21st century, in the early first quarter of 21st century, this isn't meant to help anyone. This is meant to be a bait and switch, wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what I think. Can we make it work if we could all become intelligent and get on the same page and be empathetic towards other people's suffering, which means you're burdening other people with your existence, meaning you're not working? Sure, if we could solve for all those problems, we'd be fine, but we can't. Here's one of the rubs, and there's many, but here's one of them. And again, let's just be really straightforward. No one on planet Earth has figured this out. The smartest people in the world haven't figured this out. The only thing I can think of is the only thing that they figured out is that they can control the living shit out of us with this sort of thing. But now imagine you have a distributed portfolio of income invested in things, right? Why do you do that? Because if one thing crashes, you have other things that might be doing well, other sectors. You invest a little bit in tech, a little bit of precious metals, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Well, the current distribution of welfare programs, believe it or not, provides a little bit of security for citizens that need it, because in order to change any one area of welfare or supplementary income, unemployment, lobbyists and politicians and state officials and federal officials and you all have to agree on how that change is going to take place. And believe me, you touch those programs, you're going to have the people up your butt really quickly. Like Social Security reform would be one of the most difficult things to do, other than extending the age constantly. They seem to be able to push that one through. So there's a little bit of reinforcement. One goes away, one's still there. If everything comes down to a universal pipe of either guaranteed or minimum income, then all they have to mess with is one thing. And it could all be destroyed, or it could end up destroying a country because they can't afford it. How many politicians do you know right now who are guaranteeing all kinds of crazy shit? Okay? They're telling the blacks today that as long as you have, I guess, I know they're going to have like a meter on your skin, you know, it's going to be a DNA test or something. They're going to give you 40 acres and a mule, basically, reparations, right? Again, who's going to pay for that? You know, if I prove that I wasn't in the country by the time that all this happened, or my family did the same exact thing, do I get immunity from sacrificing my taxes into this? If some guy comes in from Kenya 30 years ago, or even 100 years ago, there was no slavery, does he get no income from this whole thing? I mean, they've been promising just crazy, crazy shit. Elizabeth Warren came up with some $50 trillion thing recently to do something. Bernie Sanders like, we'll just pay for everything. Okay. You've seen this happen. It's what these scumbags do to get votes from morons to get into office. And just like all the politicians before Donald Trump, promises never kept, right? And more so than promises never kept, you have liars lying 24/7. Again, I just mentioned it in the previous episode, but Obamacare was nothing but a huge fucking deception. Every single thing this guy said that this would be was the opposite. It's just like Satan worshiping, right? Everything's twisted backwards. Opposite. By the way, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the fact that the word bad in the 80s by Run DMC was made popular by Run DMC. You know, bad was not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. And it started the reverse polarity in our brains of changing symbology. What was bad was good. And what does Satanists do? Exactly that. It doesn't matter if you don't believe in that shit. You're not a Christian. I'm not a Christian necessarily. I believe some of the doctrine's fantastic, but they do. And they do their thing. Isn't that interesting? So what is the goal? What is like some of the other globalist goals of universal income? You've been hearing this thing, and this is just absolutely fucking hilarious. Okay, think about this. The redistribution of wealth theory. It's the Robin Hood theory. You get to sit on your ass while the people work hard, and then you say, that money is my money, right? It's like Obama running around saying, you didn't build your own company. Boy, I don't have enough expletives to give that guy for saying that. It's like this POS, lied about everything in his entire life to get everything he has. Well, of course, he's completely deluded about what it takes to make anything occur, right? So who will tell you that we should redistribute all the wealth more often than not? Ironically, bizarrely, rich people. Rich people tell you that we should redistribute the wealth and we should go to a socialistic system. The amount of multi-millionaire Democrats who preach this stuff is unreal. Remember, Pelosi should be worth around $8 million if she could keep every penny she's ever earned since she's been in office in the early 90s. Now, I heard she was a silver spoon snob when she was a little kid, but let's just say she's not that, and she's earned $8 million. Well, the chick is worth over $200 million because of all of the shady things that she has done. All right. Well, that's more money than she needs. So give it up, baby. You first, man. You first. It's like anyone who preaches population control. You first. You first. You had too many kids. You first. Right? Oh, no, not me. I don't give up my money. I don't want to give up my family. I want all, I've got a really good family. We're gonna live forever and da-da-da-da. Oh, okay. I guess it's just me, right? Sounds like you want to fight. Sounds like you want a bloodbath. I guarantee you'll lose because there's a hell of a lot more of us than you. If this whole, this oligarchy, super rich, super powerful banker families, royalty families, the hangers-on who are the corporate, shills that enable these folks who are richer than your wildest dreams. Most of them billionaires. You have to understand the Rockefellers are quadrillionaires on paper. Windsor family, probably exactly the same thing. And by the way, they're paid for by the tax dollars of the English citizens. It's really funny. The chick owns a double-digit amount of land on this planet, and she receives the dividends of the taxes of that land from countries and banks that she owns, the Windsor, Queen Elizabeth. And they're still giving her, as of 2001, it was like 44 million pounds a year. So let's just put that up to about 65 million pounds in 2019 or more. Why are they paying any money? That family's more wealthy than you could possibly imagine, but it's just another stupid tax on people that want to worship dinner plates with paintings on them, Unbelievable. And, you have Canada and New Zealand and Australia all trying to suck up to this lady. Like, stop it, guys. Stop it. Be your own country. Get rid of this ridiculous, false heritage you have with these countries that don't give a shit whether or not you sink into the ocean or not. I have faith in you to be your own country. But these rich people never distribute their wealth, right? I've lived 50 years on this planet, roughly. Okay. In my lifetime, the only thing I've heard recently, one of Donald Trump doing all kinds of philanthropy, celebrities doing it, Prince doing it, George Michael doing it, the gentleman that paid for all the college degrees of all the black kids in that black college. Amazing, right? That's a real amazing human being. Okay. I haven't heard of a Rockefeller ever doing that. I haven't heard of any. They have like Rockefeller foundations, but we put our money in those organizations and then they distribute it. Oh, great. Awesome. It's a nonprofit. It's your money. Or the Rothschilds that liquidate their entire savings and just say, look, we have more money than we need. We made a standard for ourselves. We're keeping a few $1 billion, but we're giving away $1 trillion. We're giving away $50 trillion. We're paying off everyone's loans everywhere on planet Earth. It's going to be 1,000 years of prosperous Rothschild living. Enjoy. Taking them from, the horrible Satanists that we think they are, right up there to totally angelic, empowering the world. Never happens, does it? Never happens. But those are the people that fuel socialistic programs, the socialistic transformations of countries for one reason: to control us, to control you. One system where everyone has to suck up to the state for absolutely everything. No independence, no sovereignty. Common law, well, whatever. The state determines what's common law at that point. What is suffering? Well, I don't know. Ask the state. What is education? I don't know. Ask the state. What happened in history? Oh, I don't know. Ask the state. When it comes to redistributing the wealth, and you ask people inside these universal income models, this is where it gets really cloudy really quick. Because what do they say? They say, well, tax the rich more. More? Why? I mean, yeah, there's some trust fund babies out there you could make a case for. They inherited all their money, but come on, that's what their family earned in the past, gave to their kids. And if you're jealous, you're jealous. But it doesn't mean I get to take away their Aventador just because they're 16 years old and they can afford it. Hey, man, it's what their family earned. If they want to hand out a bunch of stuff to their kids, well, they're destroying their kids' lives, for one thing. It's like a Turkish prison, right? Pull someone in, give them everything they want for 10 years straight, then kick them out. They're absolutely destroyed. They don't know how to care for themselves. They've lived the most lavish world they could possibly live in, just like Coming to America, Eddie Murphy's World, the first act. That's a Turkish prison. For him, it wasn't a prison, but if you lived in that world, where if you're a man, you get all the women that you want. If you're a woman, you get all the men that you want. Your food is amazing. Your amenities are amazing, and then you kick them out after 10 years. That's what they used to do to their enemies. That's what a Turkish prison is. It's not some horrible spot in South America in some weird prison. It's a palace. Well, that's what these rich people do to their kids when they hand out all that money. They destroy them. I've seen it happen to friends of mine who are famous actors. They turned 18, they got their trust fund completely fucking gone in 18 months. These kids are utterly broke and nobody wants to hire them anymore. But now this is where we have to look at the fabric of society a little bit. Now, I have told you several times in old episodes about the friends of mine who were in their 60s and 70s who lived through the hippie era. And they were hippies. One was way more of a hippie than the other one. But both of them tested the idea of the commune. This place where a bunch of people get together, they pick out a plot of land, and they say, we're just going to live off the land. We're going to be here. We're all going to work together. Someone's going to get food. Someone's going to get water. Someone's going to get everything else. Wash the clothes, feed the kids, whatever it is. We're all going to distribute all these tasks in every single scenario. The highest amount of people that contributed after about 45 days was 3%. That's the highest. These are two different guys that were in two different areas of the world experimenting with the commune thing, had the exact same thing happen. Now, these are a lot of young kids, but they're very privileged white kids doing this. There's kids of all races there, but overall it's predominantly America in the 60s, right? Who have the ability to run off and do these kind of things, right? So what's interesting about it is that, at least in one case, one of my friends said, look, we realized that this was happening. And so the 3% said, screw all these other folks. And I don't know what the numbers are, but they went off and created another commune. And they said, look, we're going to make rules. As soon as you don't contribute, you're kicked out. All right. Jesus Christ. So they went off and created another one. And then each person that, from the 97%, they're starting to disintegrate because they realize they're a bunch of losers, right? So as some of them migrated around, they came to this new one. And the guy said, look, as soon as you don't contribute, if you go 24 hours and you don't contribute, you're out of here. Are you good with that? Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Couldn't believe it. I can't believe anyone would ever do that. Blah, blah, blah. They built up another mass of people. Went right back to the same old number, 97.3. The other 3 left, never came back to a commune. The funny thing is those 3% went off to be extremely professional folks. A lot of them have Oscars, and you watch their movies, and I watched their movies when they were kids, or when we were kids, right? But they worked really, really hard because they realized that there is a fabric of the society on this planet that are simply a bunch of good-for-nothing losers, okay? They simply don't see that they are burdening other people with their existence. Now, this is something centralized to late 60s, early 70s sort of behavior. I don't know if this exists in 2019. Who knows what would happen? There are plenty of functional communes in the world, but they usually don't have that many people, and they usually have super high IQs, and they're doing something else with their time. They're doing research or what have you. They're not just living out in some Indian reservation or some other location, right? Now, the other model, which is sort of fascinating, is that, I can't do the math right off my head, but I would say, well, you can do a little bit of the math. Let's just say we took all of America, 350 million people, split it in half, so 150 million of actual adult working individuals, people of adult age that can get this minimum universal income. We give them all $1,000 a month. And then what do? They have to spend it. Okay. Well, that creates an economy. That creates currency, right? It goes in a current. Washes up against banks, right? And all that great terminology they use in banking. All right. In America, that would be at least, $150 billion a year. Well, that goes in a big circle. They estimate that over 8 years in America, if they were to give all working adults this universal income at $1,000 a month, that they might be able to raise the GDP up to 12%. Sounds interesting. And again, you can always make numbers lie. You can make numbers tell the truth. It just depends on who's pushing this thing. Again, the thing that really concerns me about this thing is that you have Cyprus that did this, I believe, in 2013. I don't know when Brazil started doing this, but they've started to do this, and it doesn't look like the videos that I see coming out of Brazil are individuals that are getting any equivalency of $1,000 of their money per month. And again, if your money isn't worth much, then there's a bit of an issue. The question of inflation was and has been brought up several times against a universal income model. For me, it seems very dangerous on that level. But what's funny is everybody who's into this, that's when they start going into their jibber jabber. They start going into their frontier gibberish, if you are familiar with Blazing Saddles, and you start to try to pay attention to a sentence. Everything that they've said about universal income up to that point makes sense, and then all of a sudden they get to this and they're like, look over there, and they run over, they run away. But it all comes back to this total of it's not an issue with universal income. They have one of the studies I read was They boiled all these numbers down, and then they talked about paragraph after paragraph about how this could go this way or the other thing. At the very end, the conclusion was, but we think it won't happen. We don't think inflation's even possible in this. And I don't know how that's the case, because the rest of the economy still goes, right? If let's just say America generates, I think we generate about $3.5 trillion a year in revenue. Corporations, people, all together, right? Well, universal income wouldn't remotely be might be a fraction of a percent still of all the income going in circles. So that income is still subjugated to whatever the economy is doing. If we got into a war, the problem is that the war might make you spend a tremendous amount of money, and then you're quantitatively easing it. If there's another scandal in banking, what the hell is going to stop that from screwing up all the economy? And again, if you have another crappy president like the one we had previous to the one we have now, and they serve the bankers like all the presidents back to Kennedy, right? Kennedy's the last good dude, and after that, it was hell on wheels, serving the bankers, serving the elite of the world or whatever. We're not free of any of that stuff. So then what happens? Does 1,000 turn into 2,000, turn into whatever? Don't know. Now, the definition of minimum basic income is if you simply drew a line that says, look, this is poverty. Whatever country you're in, proportional how much money you get. The minimum basic income is supposed to go up to and just above poverty. Now, of course, there are plenty of individuals that are looking at the numbers and going, well, geez, we need to bring it up to a middle class level of living such that you simply don't have to work. You know, what's funny is that it's such a, depending on your personality, depending on what you think your personal responsibilities are in the world, it's a fun thought because universal income seems almost like a monthly lottery. If I said to you, would you vote for something where you didn't have to work ever again? I mean, geez, initially you're like, well, yeah, of course. You just impulsively, boom, yeah, of course. And then you slow down and you regain your faculties and you look at society and look at your kids and you look at the world and you look at the accomplishments of your country and the innovation of individuals that did things because they were broke and there were no welfare programs back in the day of any level, right? And they became amazing. You know, again, I mentioned this several times. I just listened to a ton of interviews from Little Richard. Little Richard was washing dishes at a Greyhound bus stop. And he was singing like Tutti Frutti and all these other tunes that he was sort of writing. He'd been kind of playing with the lyrics since he was a kid. And it was that level of poverty that got him to start to pursue his music. In fact, he went into music, came out, washed dishes, and then went back in. James Brown talks about it all the time. He's like, look, I was broke, married with kids. I was singing at a church, leading the band, and I started taking the beats that we were developing in the church and started putting mature lyrics on it, and then kapow. We have the Godfather of Soul. There's a lot of broken families that created a lot of amazing people. Now, we have some people that were spoon-fed a lot of cash, and they actually turned out to be okay as well. Some good, some turned out to be good, some turned out to be pretty evil. You know, I don't know. I didn't pursue my dreams because I was broke as a kid. You know, I by about 13 years old, I started working professionally with a W-2. And so I took care of all of my elective objects in life. My strategic resources were still being provided by my father and my grandmothers and that sort of thing, like eating and shelter. I didn't pay for any of that stuff. But by the time I was 18, really technically 17, I was paying my own way. Full room and board, everything. I was out working my butt off. But, you know, I was fortunate to have skills that paid the bills, and so I didn't really get close to poverty at any point in time. But I can tell you, you know, I have been as close to penniless in my adult life as anybody can get. used my unemployment up, used some savings up, used up some inheritance at one point in my life, and boom, the phone rang. I kept my skills sharp and got a great job. I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I had enough money to sit around and be in the middle class. Seems scary. Now, we do have, again, as we've mentioned in several episodes in season 4 and some that are coming up here in 5, that we have a bit of an issue with education, right? Education is the way that we're going to get past all of our woes. Boy, the curve is now, I should say the deficit we have in education is so deep that we're going to have to work really, really hard just to get back to the average mean of America in 1955. Now, one of the little segments they go through when they talk about how feasible is it to turn on universal income, because they need to find a bunch of money. Now, again, the catch-22, the paradoxical loop that you have with this entire problem is that if you gave people a bunch of money, you would have less income, less additional income in some cases. By giving someone $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month or whatever puts them in the middle class, they will not go and generate that $10,000 a month that they would had they had a necessity to get a job. Because it's most likely the case that with most people's average to above average intelligence, they won't be able to find jobs that are paying as low as even a guaranteed minimum income, the other model. Think about the innovation that will never occur because no one has a mother of invention anymore. That's paramount to your culture blowing up. But what they talk about is, cutting a bunch of other programs to pay for this sort of thing. Well, in America, we could probably just cut unemployment, cut welfare, and all the different types of assisted programs, as long as the amount of money that you give to a person who needs it is equivalent to that income. Now, what I don't know is how they handle children. I've never heard anyone address the child thing. But now imagine this. We all know people that gank welfare. This has been going on since it was invented. Once, it's usually only controlled by the females because they have the uteruses and they make children. But once you can teach a person on welfare that if you have a child, you get an extra credit of welfare payments, of welfare food stamps, and all this other subsidies, they will go out. I've known hundreds of cases of this, where women will have as many children as possible so they're rolling in cash. Now imagine a child, a baby is also allocated $1,000 just simply because it exists and it's a citizen. Okay, what stops a ghetto person of any color, of any place, and they're all over the place, of all races, This is not a racist thing at all. Why wouldn't they have, 8 kids and then it's $8,000 a month? Why wouldn't they? We have to find a way to regulate that. And let me tell you, that has never been regulated that I know of. Maybe you have some information, I don't know. Again, I can't claim anything in foreign countries. I simply don't know. My personal perspective comes from my personal life experience with this, coming from a really, really small town where I definitely saw people living on Social Security. Every town typically has a large area of the center of the town, which is sort of your middle class. And it varies here and there depending on if there's 2-income household or not. But in the 70s, you only had to have one. So if the mom worked after the kids were in school, they were doing really well, put money away, going on vacations, that kind of good stuff. But we always had our small country club little area where the people are more wealthy. Their homes are bigger, still that way to this day. And then we have literally the opposite 2 corners strips along the edge of town, which are incredibly destitute. I mean, you could probably rent a house there for $100 a month, if not $150 a month. You will not be living large, okay? And your house is going to creak, and your neighbors are going to be, suffering like you are. So on one side of the game, you're like, well, good. This universal income will allow people to spruce up their lives a little bit. Yeah, one generation might have a bunch of bad habits. If someone is already an alcoholic because they've been suffering so long, it might feed the alcoholism, and we're going to lose that person a little earlier because we're enabling it. Not sure you can do anything about that. Second tier would be your new generation could potentially escape that area because they don't have to be there, because they got the income with a low education. Okay, well, if they can live, and perhaps there's other programs, and there's always this sort of gray area with universal income where, they say that in the minimum model, you typically have to take a test the minimum model, you don't have to take the test. They call it a means test. The guaranteed model, you have to take a means test, which means typically you have to prove that you need the money, and then you get it. That's if you're completely unemployed. Maybe you're going back to school. They usually force you to go to school. You can enroll yourself in a lot of these programs, but they have to be accredited classes. They got to have trade skills attached to them, careers attached to them, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, those are all theoretical things that if we could figure that out, most of the colleges would be defunded and shut down because they're teaching crap, megatons of crap. So when I come at it from my own opinion, having spent, I guess you could say the majority of my pre-17 life in a little country town in the middle of America, I've seen suffering. I've seen suffering with, 3 kids and 2 parents, where they will take any job that is paying any money. The kids will take jobs the second they can, and they're very appreciative of their jobs. But unfortunately, in some cases, it's kind of a duality of pre-existing debt that they can't pay off, or someone gets sick. That's usually the one that kills a family in the Midwest, because they're eating shitty food. They're not paying attention to a lot of other health risks because they're being told by the state that a lot of things are healthy that aren't healthy. And it can take the whole family down. They don't have insurance because they can't afford the premiums, and we can't get these things wrangled, What's crazy is that we allow insurance to be a private sector thing, and I know that that's going to go counterintuitive to the Obama thing. The Obama thing was private insurance companies underwriting federal policy, and so that's why the premiums have quadrupled since they started. It's insane. It's insane coverage, right? But if you created the same risk pool management model, which is insurance at a federal level, and simply said, look, you can buy this policy where you're all in a big 350 million person pool. Screw all these private companies. We're going to provide this. Hey, if you want to buy their private policy, you're more than welcome to pay it. But the one we pay, the insurance we give the senators, the congressmen, and the president, and all the administration people on the Hill, which is this amazing insurance, which pays for everything, no co-pays, 100% coverage. If you're having brain surgery, you don't even need to worry. It's all paid for, and you get the best doctors in the world. Take that program and spread it across the entire country without a bunch of promises that are broken. We can't get to, in this country, that model because we have people fighting for this old, banker-designed model, which is Obamacare. Once we can just take that thing and cut the head off and burn the body, and it's gone, and we can start from scratch, and it's basically, everyone might pay, if everyone paid $100 a month, the amount of young people paying for it wouldn't get sick. And again, if we clean up the water, clean up the air, clean up the airwaves, start educating on health, get people to eat what's good for them, then the amount of people getting sick will vanish considerably. And so we'll have all this money just sitting there waiting for the one person who gets cancer, the one person that has some congenital problem that manifested through multiple generations, and we can take care of them like we do our vets. I've said it several times in the episode. I've said it several times for other policies in the world. We have too much corruption in the modern world, in the Western world, to remotely touch anything that is centralized in terms of control and strategic resources for human beings. We have too much. So this stuff is all going to be translated into a bait and switch situation. Promise one thing, screw them with another. It's just going to take place. That's my humble opinion. There was a point. Let me just give you the sort of the opposite model, the non-handout model. There was a point, and for those of you longtime listeners, you know, in the 70s in my little hometown, Chanute, Kansas, okay, my hometown was booming. Okay, 1977, let's pick a year. We had so many independently owned companies and businesses in my hometown. Everyone was moving the money in a big circle. I've told the story a long time ago. I'm going to tell it again now. There's the old adage, it's a little anecdote about how money can work and how it should work, especially in a small town. An outside businessman comes into a small town and goes into the hotel. He says, how much does it cost to stay for a week here? This story's like in the 1800s, right? Guy that owns the hotel says, $50. And the guy's, okay. You mind if I go take a look at the room before I agree? He says, sure. He puts his $50 bill down on the counter and goes upstairs to check out the room. Very quickly, the hotel guy takes that money, runs down the street, and gives it to someone he owes $50 to. Let's just say a food service. That person owes someone else, so the debt's paid to the hotel for $50. But the food service guy had his truck break down, and he owes the car repair guy $50. He takes the $50 down to the car station, car repair place, pays that debt off, and the car repair place owes the dry cleaners for his uniforms $50. He takes it over to the dry cleaners, pays out the $50. Now the dry cleaner owner is just a single dude. He owed the hotel $50 for some reason. He takes it back to the hotel owner, gives him the $50, and says, we got it paid, right? We're good. Yep. Thank you so much for paying your debt. Now the $50 is sitting on the counter again at the hotel. The dude comes downstairs and says, you know what, I'm actually going to stay with a friend. I just remembered. Takes his $50 and walks out the door. So the hotel debt's paid, the food place is paid off, the car place is paid off, the dry cleaners is paid off, and the money just went in a big circle. Everyone got it paid off. And that's how money is supposed to occur in a closed loop system in a country, in a state, in a town, and among the people. The second you introduce foreign exchange with other countries, the money can leave your country and never come back in any time that will help your country. How many of you have heard that we've got, it's not as high anymore because China's selling it off, but China had loaned us like $1.5 trillion in money. I think it's down quite a bit now because they've been selling all their notes, getting out of U.S. currency. That's a problem. My little hometown thrived in 1977 at least. Electronic stores. We had, it's a little tiny town with like 12,000 people. We had 2 ice cream places, plus Dairy Queen. We had like 4 grocery stores. We had Main Street was just packed with businesses on both sides of the fence. Shoe stores and cowboy, clothing stores and all kinds of restaurants. And, we had our drugstores and hotels and all this stuff. Tons of it. All booming. The psychiatrists were booming. The chiropractors were booming. Everything was booming. Because the money went in a beautiful circle all day long. Everybody was paying it off. It was great. Until Walmart moved in. Technically moved in 1975, but it took a little while to start having an impact. By the mid-'80s, 10 years later, I'm stupid about this whole thing. I worked for them for 11 months. Sam Walton was alive when I was working for him. it started to hurt businesses. Because why would you buy shoes downtown at the shoe store that's been there for 50 years when you can go get them at Walmart for cheaper? They're shittier shoes at Walmart, made in a foreign country. But it was cheaper. When you're broke, that's what you do. Electronics. We had a very famous electronics store in my hometown. Had everything you ever wanted. It was just magical to go into this place with everything just beautifully set up, demo rooms and all this other stuff. Every guy in town would outfit their home. The guy was booming in money. Music stores and all kinds of stuff. Grocery stores. Grocery stores were the last to go because Walmart expanded. They shut down the first building they built that I worked at and built a superstore outside of town. And now they had a grocery store, and everybody is so happy to be buying shit food from Walmart, letting their local grocery stores with healthy organic food go out of business. It was an IQ test that my town is still failing. I mean, they get an F plus every day for not figuring out this model. And now Walmart is owned by Europeans. Thus, they replaced the American star with the illuminated sun, and they farm out all the products to either India or China or some other foreign country, Mexico, South America. Nothing against all those countries, but if you want your country to succeed, you're going to have to buy your own products. It's just a basic thing. So when I think about the destruction of America, and again, Charlotte Iserby talked about being briefed on this in the early 70s. Her father was a skull and bones guy, and she did not agree with his doctrine. She wrote a beautiful book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of Americans. She said there was a European conglomerate that came over. She was in New England at the time. I don't know if she's still alive to this day. I think she is. But they told her how they were going to dismantle Central America, which was the root of all the values and systems that keep our country together. And they did it. They succeeded. And now we have to undo it. I don't know what a universal income would do to a teeny tiny town, because that for me is where I take most of the models of the universe that are proposed in any country around the globe, and I take it to my little hometown. I go, what would it do to my little hometown? Maybe it would help, maybe it wouldn't. Now I know that there's a little bit of a centrifuge that can help little hometowns, which is honesty and integrity. Because in a little hometown, you can't run your mouth. You can't backstab people more than maybe a couple times before you're literally ostracized. You're banished from the town because no one wants to help you. No one wants to be with you. Your family has a scarlet letter around your neck. You're screwed. But as soon as you come to a big city, man, it's the opposite thing. It's who can you screw today? Because you know you can. Because you can screw people and be rude to them, steal from them, whatever, and you'll never see them. And I'm digressing a little bit into the fabric of our society today to reflect back on these sort of Robin Hood models, because I don't believe they work due to corruption, right? In the big city, just in case you don't live in one, and I'm sure that most of you do, but if you don't, if you were to leave your phone in my hometown at a restaurant, on a table, out on a park bench, as long as somebody saw you and knows who you are, oh, there's Fred over there, he's with this thing, and then like an hour later or a day later they find the phone on the bench, or a waitress finds your booth and you've left your phone on the seat. They know who they serve. They know exactly where to put it, and you know where to call to ask, hey, did I leave my phone there? And they're like, oh yeah, you left it right here. Okay, well I'll actually stay up a little later so you can come down and get your phone, or you can call them at their house and be like, can you meet me down at your restaurant? I need to use my phone. It's the only thing I got. And they'll be like, yeah, okay. And they'll go down there at 2 a.m, open it up, and give you your phone. Not like that in the big city, is it? You leave your phone at a nightclub, at a restaurant. What's wild is the very next person that finds that object is a goddamn thief. It's almost like the universe is balanced that way in a big city. You almost never have anybody who brings it to you. And when it happens, and I left my wallet once at an ATM in the Bay Area, of all places. And this dude grabbed it, and I forgot how he contacted me, but he was an old guy in a pickup, and he was like a Midwestern dude who had moved to the Bay Area, and he had ethics, and he brought it back. It was amazing. But that is super duper rare. Super duper rare, man. Now, does that mean, it's perfect in little towns? No. But I mean, if you get your shit stolen in a little town, it's almost always some juvenile male doing it. What's really sad, and I hope it changes over time, is that here we have this thing called the internet, right? We're all able to communicate with each other globally. Technically speaking, the way that keywords trend online, right? Press covers this every once in a while. What was it? Clinton body count is as of the recording of this episode, is the number one tracking or trending phrase on the internet. How wild is that, man? But what we haven't been able to do, because all social media at this point that's popular is controlled by the deep state. There's no real attempt to bring together any one of these concepts to spread it to the point where we can get to where we need to go. Now, universal income is being spread. Trust me, that's being spread because it leads to socialism, which leads to overall control. And socialism is sort of communism in sheep's clothing, right? But we need to be having global discussions. One of the most intelligent things I heard in one of the presentations trying to describe any form of universal income are the cultural impacts on this concept. There are certain countries that would jump on this and certain countries that would not jump on this because they have pride. They realize this would be just an undermining of the human condition. And so they'll resist. Some countries are so broke they can't do it. Some people are so rich, where do you start? Again, like my old co-host used to say, to give you sort of a perspective of how double standard the world is. You have the Catholic Church, which is gigantic, right? The number one real estate owner in the world. I think that's true, besides McDonald's. They have ungodly amounts of money. I would estimate trillions of dollars in real estate, treasure, possessions of all kinds. But anytime there's a giant tsunami that kills 280,000 people, you will never ever see a fleet of C-130s come in with, the Vatican on the side or the Pope on the side or whatever, dropping off blankets and food for anyone. It never happens. What happens? The Red Cross does it. Well, who supports the Red Cross? We do. So these super filthy rich organizations which preach all of this Jesus-like behavior are anything but Christ-like. Can you imagine if Christ showed back up on earth? Oh my God, would that not be the best thing ever? Provided he's real. But say he comes back. He just appears inside the Vatican with the Pope sitting on a throne in the snake room down, the viper room down in the basement, right? Just the prospect of that would be so amazing. I think the Pope would just light on fire the second he shows up into the room. But imagine, we have a catastrophe, and it's the precursor to Christ showing back up on earth. And now we have millions and millions of people hurt for whatever reason, meteorite, whatever, tsunami, earthquake, whatever. And he says, get off your asses. We're liquidating all this. We're liquidating every single thing in this place. And you are going to spend every last dime, and you're going to sell this building. Everything goes, because we're going to save humanity. Because that's what I did when I was here. I bathed the feet of prostitutes. I healed lepers. It's funny. You read that book and you're like, well, okay, his intentions were pretty clear. And if you tell me that you believe this guy is real, and this is the way you behave, nuts, right? So part of the systemic issue that is never discussed is, why is everybody poor? Why is there poverty everywhere? Why is the majority of the world at about an 85 IQ or lower? Why is that? Education? I mean, give me a break. You're going to tell me that that's expensive? Not really. When I was a kid, we would get our books for school. You had to go get your books from the class, and you this big giant thing of books with you. You had to push them in your locker, and you grab enough books out so you wouldn't have to be late between your trips to classes. And if you happen to have a class next to your locker, then you'd unload and reload. It's like your little gun of knowledge. But what were the books? The books were purchased about, every 5 to 10 years. And you'd open up the first flap of the book, and inside you'd have to write your name because this was your book. But you would also see all the previous students that had the book before you. Okay, so the school invested in the book. If it runs 10 years and the books, they get a discount because they're a school, right? They're subsidized by the state. But even the book was $50. $50 to teach me French, physics, statistics, probability, whatever, English. It goes for 10 years. That's a profit right there in terms of the GDP of a particular country. Now, we're going to have one course for a tribe in Africa versus a course for some folks in the slums of India versus Liverpool versus New York versus LA and Kansas and China. Sure, everyone's at different levels. So we got to write a bunch of different books at different levels. We have to liken education to what they already know. How do I talk about things on this show? I do analogies constantly. A lot of great teachers work through analogies. Even if they're just your friends, they're not professors. They'll say, well, you know what it's like? It's like this. Boom, 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 boom. And all you're saying, you're like, pow. But if they're a good teacher, they'll look you in the face and they'll know something about you. And they say, you know how you used to work at Walmart? Yeah. Well, it's just like Walmart, but it's this. That's how you run the stock market. And you're like, oh my God, totally get it. As Steve Martin said, it's a profit deal, eh? So education is what is going to actually fix all of this stuff. And one of the big questions was that, will people actually continue working in ditches and sewers and all these jobs that are perceived as being super bad? Before the Mandela effect changed to Eli Whitney was, if you take the childhood I had, where he was a black guy that picked cotton, who figured out how to, he washed his hand and he figured out how to make a cotton gin, pulling this stuff off. He saw the problem so often that he fixed it. Now, again, it's not that way anymore. It's a white guy from Yale who never picked a bale of cotton in his life. So what about the guys that do the jobs, the guys and gals that do the jobs that are sort of the jobs that nobody wants to do? Who would be the most qualified person to innovate those areas of work and to profit from the innovation? They are. If you were some aristocratic silver spoon kid and you wanted to put your name on the world and you wanted to fix trash collection, trash collection is actually pretty cool. Where I live, we got these big ass trucks that are gigantic and they have these robot arms that come out and grab it and throw the trash in. It's pretty cool. Somebody innovated that a little bit. Probably could take it 10 steps further. But what would you do? You would hire trash guys. Who knows how smart they are? Maybe they're utter geniuses, but because they're still pining citizens or whatever, this is the only job they can get. Maybe they're a doctor, I once had a massage from a woman, and we got to talking afterwards, and she had moved here from China. She actually was visiting from China on a work visa. I said, well, what did you do in China? She goes, I'm a doctor. I said, what kind of doctor? She goes, well, I give birth to babies. So I said, you're a full doctor, right? Oh, yeah. So here's this chick with a PhD. I said, how many babies did you deliver? She says, hundreds. I've probably done 450. She was pretty young at the time. Okay. She's doing what she could do legally in this country because her medical degree isn't transferable over here. I think she did really well because I only saw her a couple times. Part of what's being revealed, especially by someone like Candace Owens, is this reverse racism. and I don't want to get in a big racism conversation, but there is reverse repression too, which is to say if you ever touch a particular job in your lifetime, then you are never to go over what that kind of person would ever do. In my lifetime, I'll give you a little hint how bad it is, right? In my lifetime, I have done many professions, especially going through the video game industry. You start off in tech support, you do QA, then you get into being associate producer. There's 2-3 levels of that. And then you move into, if somebody dies in the industry, you can become a full-fledged producer, or you quit and start your own company like I did, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. But what's funny is, as I reached back out into the private sector, because I wanted to solve problems that weren't my problems, I wanted to work with groups of people that I didn't hire. I didn't want to have to be the CEO all the time and chase the money. I just wanted to create great things. I bring my resume in there, and I would get this weird reversed discrimination, which was, oh, well, you used to do that. Now what do you do? And it was sort of like this attitude towards, well, you've already done that, and we're not going to let you do that anymore. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, it wasn't that clear, but in the in the interviews for these companies, I would sit there and I would go, well, how long have you done your job? And how many years do you get to do that job before someone takes it away from you because you've done it too much? I got friends in the game industry who have been producers for damn near 30 years, and they are sought after because they know how to do it really, really well. They're still thriving industries, right? And again, if you're in the game industry past a certain age, they start taking a crap on you, which is why all the games suck today, right? It's why Hollywood's struggling too. For me, universal income is sort of like GMO foods. I just did an episode earlier today where I mentioned a lot of this stuff. Hopefully I can checker this release with something else more interesting and more diverse. But it's tampering with the very fundamentals of humanity, with the most corrupt officials ever in the history of man running the world. And so I don't trust it. I don't mind the concept, but I don't trust it. And I'll give you another thing, because I got a little bit more room on my stick here. One of the areas where I have there's two sides to it. I'll give you my opinion of the bureaucracy, and then I will show you an example where it's ludicrous. We know that when you have to go to a state or country, in your federal level, to get anything done, to process a piece of paperwork, it can be excruciating because you're behind all these barriers. And why governments litter themselves with people that are only left brain with low IQs, and I don't mean to piss on anyone in particular, but I've run into plenty of these people, and you have too. It baffles me why they don't want super innovative people. Well, they can't pay them the money that they deserve. Okay, so that's one big problem. But now, in America, you have a fixed amount of money as a particular citizen that you must pay into unemployment insurance every year. Now, if you make over $100,000 a year, you can end up paying that off by about mid-year. Like if you made $130,000 a year in America, you're done paying your unemployment insurance usually around May, June. All right? You don't have to pay any more. Your income goes up. It's kind of cool. But I have personally paid unbelievable amounts of money into my unemployment insurance. At times, I've been unemployed, and I take the break, and I'm developing a new business. In one case, I developed a multi-million-dollar business by myself with one other guy, but just two of us doing this. And, we use that money to build up our contacts, to get everything in order, to pay off the first steps of the corporation, of setting up the phones, of building a brand, of building our websites, and just closing the first deal and getting the first paycheck. Where again, once you get the paycheck, your unemployment goes away. That's fine with me. But in America, you only get your unemployment insurance for 6 months, and then they cut you off. If you're in a recession and Congress votes for it, they'll extend your unemployment. Okay. But where'd the rest of my money go? If I were to get from now on, from today to the day I die, because there's, I forgot how many, I think you have to go a year, something like that, year, 18 months, something like that, before I can apply for it again, sort of thing, right? But if I did it as often as I could between now and the day I die, I probably would make back all the money I put into it. If I go from now to 80 years old, right? That's weird. What if there is just a condition where it's difficult to find a job? For whatever reason. Individuals need to be able to get the money they put in. If someone, people in my hometown, they work for 20 years, they put in their money, and then they only get 6 months of their unemployment. 6 months. But they put 20 years in. Well, there's a bunch of people working, putting new money in the system, so they're not out of money. They're just, I don't know what they do with it. They siphon it off, they spend it, they transfer it around, they buy bombs, whatever it is. This is the type of weird, bureaucratic, sort of passive corruption that happens with their money. The second you get taxed and it disappears, I don't know. I think it's a 90 percentile rate that your money will be spent unwisely and against your wishes. It's just a factor of the world. Anyway, it's something to think about. I'd be very interested to hear if you live in a country that has it, whether it's been successful. If you've ever studied it, let me know what you think. If you live in France, I don't know if I have anyone from France. I don't think anyone's ever chimed in from France. But if you know people from France, ask them and relay it to us somewhere in the YouTube comments, in the Lock Facebook group, what have you. It shouldn't be a goal of any society or any planet on Earth to do this kind of thing unless we have fully achieved our sort of Gene Roddenberry world, where corruption is simply impossible at any mega level, any global level. You're always going to have somebody stealing something at some local level. Your buddy's going to borrow $10 and never give it back. And when you ask for it back, they're going to say, what, $10? That's going to happen. But if we can't handle this huge broad stroke thing, then I think we need to pause before we get a little excited about this fake lottery ticket that's going to come in, because someone's got to pay the bill. And the last thing we want to do is deter super successful people from building businesses that you could work for by taxing them to death, right? Oh, and by the way, one of the big avenues that they think they're going to use to fund this kind of thing is climate taxation. Boy, could you imagine? Once I heard that in one of the analyses, I was like, Jesus, this is so corrupt. It is so aimed at being corrupt. First, we have the most corrupt politicians doing this, and they're mentioning climate change and climate taxation as a method of paying for it. Oof. So it's like, we'll give you a little bit of income if you let us take away all your children. If you let us put our thumb on you really hard, you can have this thing for a little while until we got you completely controlled, and then we're going to take it away, and we'll just start, creating that human meat grinder that was in Pink Floyd The Wall. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, well, that's the coolest place to be. There's a search field, there's a category section, there's links to our video options, which is currently YouTube and BitChute. Brighteon never came through. They still can't take more than 10 videos, and you have to do this. I mean, really, it's like a self-censoring platform. The design is so atrocious. They shouldn't have opened the service until they could figure out how BitChute did it. I mean, someone from Brighteon should be making a call to BitChute and going, how the hell are you able to take infinite videos? Because we can't, Your audio choices are easy. Android and Mac, Windows, whatever, all supported. Just click the links. It'll take you right to the feeds. Social media, we have one really super interactive group of people, which is in the Locked Facebook group. Just know that when you apply, I have a little question for you. It says, say something human. If you don't say something human, I might, if I'm feeling really happy that day, take a look at your profile and see if you're human. Otherwise, I block you and you're out for life. So if you're interested in participating in true dialogue, That's the place to go. I do have a Twitter account for this channel. Currently, it's funny. I was in a conversation with a think tank of guys, and we had a dude visit the conversation who's a total expert in this, and he's like, Twitter is dead. He goes, no one's using Twitter. He said, the number one search engine in the world is Google. The second most popular search engine is YouTube, and Google owns both of them. It says Facebook is your number one social media platform. No one's been able to dislodge them. Remember, they knocked out MySpace. MySpace killed Friendster. Unless there's a revolution, unless Kim.com delivers his big, advertised social media platform, there won't be any competition for a really long time. If they regulate the thing, which I'm going to make an episode on, it will forge them into the standard utility. That's what people don't understand. There's a couple ways to donate to the page. One, you can just watch the videos. But the second one is Patreon, which is, it lightens up quite a bit during summertime. But again, and as I've said 100 times, there's a brand new channel for season 1. There's 2 ways to get that. Again, it's all been re-edited. All of it's been re-edited. Now, the podcasts are all the same. So if you want to hear what it was like and hear the music the way I wanted it to be, the podcast is the way to get the season 1 in its entirety off my website, which they can't censor. Thank God. Just give them time. But there's also a link directly to the channel off the website. Again, if you go to the website and you watch any of the season 1 stuff, you're guaranteed to be watching what I want you to watch. But a lot of the videos were completely locked out of Europe, so you may have never seen probably at least 20 videos in season 1 if you live outside the United States, especially in Germany. There's a store link, which I haven't done anything with. I apologize. But our viewership's hanging on. The shadow banning is definitely affecting the channel hugely. I mean, the subscriptions are pathetic, and again, the people that have I think the way it's working is the people who have a lot of interaction with the videos are getting unsubscribed. If they click the bell's unclicked, so they're not getting any notifications. But a lot of people are coming back saying, I was completely unsubscribed from your channel. I thought you disappeared, because everyone's anticipating the channel getting turned off at some point. BitChute is 1080p. It looks like it's doing really, really well. I don't think they can take 4K, but who cares? It still looks good. I mean, you're not coming for my groovy smile. But anyway, appreciate you all. Appreciate the conversation. Please get involved in the conversation if you're having any thoughts and opinions. If you have suggestions for episodes, let me give you the manual to get your idea into a show. You need to become a little producer. You need to research it a little bit for me. I would say create 10 bullets, which are the highlights of the information that you have researched for me. Again, a producer doesn't just hand a book to the person who's doing the show and go, hey, if you read this book, you're going to have a great episode. I'm looking at you like, really? You think you got time to read a book? You should come see all the books that are stacked up that I need to read that people have sent me for free. It's crazy. I owe everybody, the courtesy of reading those, and I can't get to them. So you interpret stuff. I've got a few great people who are giving me, miles of things to read, and I just don't have the time. So if you get in there and go boom, 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 and you might give me page references. So if I do have to dive into a 400-page book or some 10-hour video on YouTube, you got me some time codes where I can go in and see the gist of what's going on. Believe me, I will get it. And if I am truly entrapped by your idea, your suggestion, I will most likely consume 50 to 100% of everything you give me, because it'll just grow on me, and I'll take it to my smoke lounge for further discussion. So that's the best way to get big ideas to me. But a lot of you just have one sentence. For those probably dozen individuals who I've called out by name, or at least we've linked up somehow that I did the video because you suggested it. A great suggestion is a great suggestion. The more simple and profound it is, the better. Like this was just universal income. I asked a friend, got interested, did some research, combined all my previous experience, and boom, we have an episode. And on the subject of episodes, until the next one, Take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.